I'm one of the GALILEO, and this is our Digital Library of Georgia. Um, it's pretty basic Blacklight site. We are using lots of Blacklight plugins that are separate Ruby gems, and I don't necessarily know their maintenance states, and they do make upgrading a headache, so we may be changing that in the future. We are still on Blacklight 7 as well, but you can see we use Blacklight Gallery for our default presentation of search results in this grid view, and we've got Blacklight Maps based view option 2. Um, and you know, on our facets here, it's mostly Dublin Core metadata, but for filtering by date, we use Blacklight Range Limit. And we have Blacklight Advanced Search too. So all the gems. We are an aggregator. This content comes from libraries and cultural heritage institutions throughout the state of Georgia. So you'll see every item has a holding institution and a collection, that comes from the original institution's repository. And many of them have their own websites, and we link to their institutional repository. Other things, the Digital Library of Georgia is the only outlet for that content, and we self-host the digital objects, and we in turn feed into the Digital Public Library of America. So we're a DPLA hub, if you know what that is. Um, yeah, so besides this items view, we have separate Blacklight catalog controllers for collections, for serials, and for those holding institutions. This one is more customized to look like a browse view instead of a search view, but it is using Blacklight. Um, and from there, people can drill down to the collections associated with that institution and then to the individual items. Pretty typical Blacklight metadata here, or Blacklight behavior here showing mostly Dublin Core metadata, but for many, not all of our items, we have embedded IIIF viewer. We are using Mirador currently. And this is a self-hosted item, so the IIIF presentation manifest that's feeding into here is created, on the fly as part of this application. But for other items, we are consuming a third-party IIIF presentation manifest, so something straight out of Georgia State University's Content DM or something like that. Um, those are the basics of our public facing site. I want to show our admin site real briefly. It has a Blacklight, just throws you into Blacklight Advanced Search and has a Blacklight view of all the items in our admin application. But we have what I think is a pretty common model where in our admin site, the canonical copy of everything is um, kept in a relational database, Postgres in our case, and we have a pretty bog standard Rails, not Blacklighty application for interacting with that, for managing items, and then when items are created or edited, anytime they're saved, we use the Rails gem called or Ruby gem called Sunspot, and that transforms the data a little and puts it into Solar to power the public site and the Blacklight-based features in the admin site. So we have a pretty crude version of that where you can see everything's got a show page that's fed by the relational database and also has a separate show page based on the that comes from Blacklight. And you saw I had a listing of items that came from Solar Blacklight and a listing of items that came from the relational database. And furthermore, we've got this Solar representation, that JSON of all the stored fields straight out of Solar. So can tell sometimes things go wrong indexing and we need lots of views to figure out exactly where in the pipeline things went wrong. But yeah, people can edit item metadata in a form here, but for the most part, things are managed through this XML representation here. We can import and export that in bulk. And we have, batches of items that are imported this way that can be cleaned up and, before they get committed to the public site. So there's a sort of batches can be staged, and we have some versioning here, and only the most current version of the item goes into Solar. All of the batching and versioning only happens in Postgres. Um, so besides that, the only other thing of note here is we've got this portals section here, and you can see if I click on the Digital Library of Georgia link, it goes to that item in the public facing site, of course. But there's also this other one that says the Civil Rights Digital Library for this particular item, and that goes to the item in a different public facing site. We have a second site with a different but overlapping collection. So this is all content related to the civil rights movement, but it is not Georgia specific in scope. It's national or international in scope. So some items, that aren't Georgia specific might be in here, but not in the other site. This is a very similar site, very similar code base. It is a separate Git project, so for better or worse, we copy and paste code between the two a lot, and sometimes try a feature out in one and port it to the other. But very similar, just different theming, different filters on the same Solar core. The one other interesting thing I want to show that's specific to this site is we have two other Blacklight catalog controllers for different object type, which is a different way we group those archival items. We group them by historical figure, and we also group them by event. So this, even though it doesn't have search and is this pretty short in the grand scheme of things timeline view, this is using Blacklight. This is a Blacklight index page that's been customized. And then the show pages for all these people and events have some basic metadata, a description or bio. And then they have this kind of cool accordion view that shows all the associated archival items grouped by collection and holding institution. And that is just a custom Blacklight show field that has a custom accessor method that actually runs a separate search in Solar to get these items and do the grouping. And then custom helper method to control how it's presented, which is in turn calling some Blacklight gallery view components. So this can be presented the same way as on the search results page without encode duplication. And that is all the cool stuff I wanted to share. And I will turn it over, if y'all are okay with time, to Seamus, who has an application from the other side of our house that we'd like to demo.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I am Seamus Nairn. We work at UGA, but a lot of our projects are statewide, so they're under the umbrella of the University System of Georgia. I'm presenting our Galileo site, which is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. Galileo gives access to online resources to residents of Georgia at a bare minimum, anyone with a library card, to subscription-based services that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. This is the third iteration from a tech stack perspective, and this is our Blacklight implementation. We are on Blacklight 7.40. I think that's also true with all of our DLG sites as well. If I click on all databases, you can see the sort of classic Blacklight search interface, although we're not using as many plugins as the DLG is. So let me do a search for ebooks. Currently, I am signed in as the Athens Regional Library System, so anybody with a library card for the Athens Public Library. And if I click on one of these, once they're logged into Galileo, then they'll basically be logged into any of these external sites. So another aspect of Galileo is basically logging folks into all of these sites. And with that, we do have this idea of express links where, teachers or librarians or whoever can share links to resources and still be able to log in without having to worry about credentials and so forth. So when we went live in 2020, that was sort of the main way Galileo is used, although now we have a bento box search, uh, uh, which I'm saying bento box specifically because I noticed that it's on some of the bingo bingo cards. Um, Maybe I shouldn't cheat that way, but you can see that we do have a bento interface, and this is not Blacklight. We are using the EDS API in order to power this. And this gives users the ability to actually search within all of those databases and not just have access to the outward databases. Unfortunately, EDS API doesn't support all databases, so this is still kind of necessary for users and institutions. To access something that they might not be able to access through EDS. I'll switch over to our admin site, and this Galileo admin and our front end as well. We developed after DLG, so we did it in a very similar way, and we learned some lessons like perhaps not putting Blacklight in your admin site. So this is a fairly vanilla site, Rails site, although we are using Sunspot to convert from Postgres to Solr to power the Blacklight site as well. This site would primarily be used by our Galileo support services team to add resources and manage institutions and resources. I have it sort of pulled up on this allocations page because an allocation represents sort of the mixture of um, you know, an institution's access to a particular resource. So we actually allow institutions to do some customizations, like if they prefer a different description of a resource, they can do that, as well as adding, resources that they wouldn't necessarily get from Galileo specifically, but like additional resources that the institution pays for, they can give their users access to that. I'll just quickly click over to info for this allocation, and we have a Solr view to just kind of show us, what the Solr representation of these basically Postgres fields look like. Sometimes we need to reindex reindex certain records if we notice some inconsistencies between those two. So that is pretty much what I wanted to show. And of course, if you have any questions, please hit us up in Slack. Thank you very much.
Thank you.